Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 82 of the Hammer Territory podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you deep into the night here on a Sunday into Monday, and I'm joined, as I often / always am, by Scott Coleman. Scott, I would say kind of as usual on a Sunday night, the fortunes of this podcast change quickly, and this time not for the better.
Hey, Brad. Yeah, man, does it feel like Groundhog's Day to you? Because I feel like we have watched that exact, maybe not the exact same Braves baseball game as what we all watched on Sunday night, as the broadcast booth slobbered over Shohei Ohtani for 3 hours. But I mean, dear God, another just infuriating loss. I think the last 6 years of the Braves just being awesome has softened me quite a bit, where I don't get as worked up over regular season games as much as I used to. But tonight's game got me about as fired up as I get for regular season games these days. And with 2 weeks to go, it was just an infuriating loss for really so many of the reasons that have plagued this team for months now.
It was kind of a microcosm of the season, and we will obviously dive into that one. We should say at the top of the show, if you are a new listener or a recurring listener, that we are part of the Foul Territory network of podcasts. Please go ahead and subscribe to this show. Just search out Hammer Territory anywhere you find podcasts. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on Overcast, we're on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. Please tell your friends about the show as well. We want to basically have you help us to spread the word, but also to make the show better. We want to have more listeners, all that fun stuff. So tell your friends about the podcast. But yeah, it's certainly Groundhog Day is a good way to put it on this show. And look, a lot of positives for the rest of the weekend for the Braves. And it's a little bit weird. Normally a Sunday night show is a series wrap up, almost without fail. But this time around, this is bizarre wraparound series. We were not going to vacate our usual recording slot on Sunday evening, especially after a national TV game against the Dodgers. But they do play again tomorrow, so it's a little bit strange. Might be a little bit shorter on this podcast because of that. But the Braves still lead the series 2-1. It does not feel that way at all. We will dive in, I promise everyone, to the nuts and bolts of the frustrating game on Sunday. Before we get to that, kind of broadly here, Scott, let's just check out on the wild card race. It's obviously a massive missed opportunity for the Braves on Sunday beyond the game itself. And I share your sentiment earlier about how we don't get quite as worked up as maybe some do. This is one that was certainly heightened. That's almost magnified more by the fact that, yes, the Braves are still tied with the Mets in the wildcard race because the Phillies did a huge favor to the Braves, actually, by beating the Mets back-to-back days. But the Braves could have been a game ahead of the Mets and a game back of the Diamondbacks, and instead tied with the Mets and 2 back of the Diamondbacks because both the Diamondbacks and the Padres won in extra innings. So it was basically on a knife's edge all the way around the wildcard race. All 4 teams were in incredibly competitive games, and unfortunately for the Braves, they took a pretty bad loss, while the Mets did kind of implode as well, but the other 2 teams won, and that was not good for the Braves.
Yeah, I mean, we are very much at the point in the season where every single game matters. And not only does it matter for the Braves, but it matters for these 3 other teams who they are competing with for the 3 wildcard spots. And it just felt like the Braves really had a missed opportunity. They could have won the first 3 games of the series against the Dodgers. Really, up until the late innings on Sunday night, the Braves have been playing fantastic baseball.
Yep.
Like all 3 phases, offense, defense, pitching. All of it on Friday, Saturday, and really most of Sunday was great. And then they just kind of flushed it all in those last couple of innings on Sunday night. The Diamondbacks played a wild game and ended up winning. The Padres ended up sweeping the Giants, which is obviously going to help out their cause. I think San Diego, of these 4 teams, I think San Diego is probably in. They have a considerable lead. I think they're now 3 full games up on the Braves and the Mets with 2 weeks to go. And even though the Phillies did the Braves a real solid on Sunday and came back to beat New York, the fact that the Braves could not find a way to win this game tonight, instead of being up a full game in the standings, and the control your own destiny phrase is always a little funny to me because, I mean, literally every team in baseball controls their own destiny. But it did feel like the Braves really left some meat on the bone by not finding a way to score a couple of runs in that horrible 8th inning. And then the way the game imploded in the 9th was very, very frustrating to watch.
Absolutely. And We'll get into all of it, just to set the stage a little bit here on the podcast. We're going to get into briefly Saturday's game, which was much more positive for Atlanta, of course, a 10-1 victory. And then we'll dive into the nuts and bolts and all the gruesome details of Sunday's brutal loss. At the end of the podcast, we'll kind of look ahead to the finale on Monday of this series, which is a big-time showdown of starting pitchers. And then at the very end, beyond that, a little bit of a glance ahead to the last road trip. Yes, the last road trip of the season for the Braves begins on Tuesday. Before we get to that stuff, though, a word from our partners on the podcast today.
Snoring sucks. So does congestion from sinuses, allergies, or a cold. And you might not even realize how much it's affecting you. FT fam, you need to try Navage Nasal Care. It's been a game changer for me.
Yeah, Kratz, Navage uses that smooth saline flow and nasal suction to clear those nasal passages.
Now I'm breathing easier, which is a pretty big deal in my life. My Navage unit is clearing my congestion fast day and night. I use it twice per day as part of my daily routine.
We want to help you get relief from your congestion too. Our listeners can order a convenient Navage starter pack, including a nose cleaner with batteries included and 30 original salt pods. Everything you need to get started. Plus, get a cleaning kit as a free gift with your order, but only going to our exclusive URL, navage.com/FAL, and using our promo code FAL. Again, to order your Navage free cleaning kit and for full product details, go to navage.com/FAL. That's promo code FAL at navage.com/FAL.
All right, Scott, we should at least acknowledge that they did win the game on Friday. Our colleagues, Sean Coleman, Stephen Tolbert, broke it down in depth on Friday night on the same podcast feed. So if you want detail about Friday's win over the Dodgers, Schwellenbach pitching well again, offense taking a lead, all that stuff, listen to that episode. But Saturday, I think I'm the only person in the world that's been tracking this stat, Scott. The Braves had been 0-7 this season when they were 13 games over 500. That's a very odd stat, but they had this glass ceiling of 13 games over 500 this entire year. And for the first time, and to this point, the only time since they lost again today, they actually got through it and won a game on Saturday in very comfortable fashion.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned a couple minutes ago how well the Braves had executed in all three phases. And in some ways, Saturday night was the peak of all of that. The offense had a couple of huge hits, a bases clearing double by Orlando Arcia, a bases clearing double by Matt Olson. And as he has been basically all year long, Chris Sale continues to be fantastic. I mean, the Braves got the Dodgers pitching position players in the 7th inning to give you an idea of how well the game on Saturday night went. That's pretty uncommon. I'm sure Dave Roberts was just trying to salvage his bullpen a little bit. But as enjoyable as Friday night was with Schwellenbach and then Saturday with Sale, it was good to win the first two games of the series. And as frustrating as Sunday night was, in some ways, Saturday was a very nice, breezy, no real drama win after the first couple of innings.
That's right. And look, my professional hat is telling me to emphasize on some level that the Braves did win 2 of the first 3 against the Dodgers. And if you gave us that 3 days ago, I think that both of us would have raised our hands and accepted that. Is that correct, Scott?
Yeah.
That you would have
said
that?
I mean, yes. I mean, it's funny. It's like, okay, if I would have told you on Thursday during the day off, all right, Braves take 2 out of 3 and a chance to win 3 out of 4 going into Monday, of course you take that. But the way that Sunday's game went, I think it just left a bad taste in everyone's mouth.
That's right. But yeah, of course, 10 runs on Saturday. They actually did it without a homer, which is pretty rare for the Braves in particular to score that many runs without a home run. They had 6 doubles in the game. That definitely helps to do that. A big double by Matt Olson, who actually, I just want to mention this now before we hit Sunday, because it's going to come up again later on. I have this theory that I came up with kind of today, even in our DM chat together at Hammer Territory. It seems to me, by the numbers and by the roles and how things have gone, Matt Olson and Marcell Ozuna have basically just swapped. And what I mean that is Ozuna was the only guy in the lineup, as we've covered ad nauseum. We covered it in a deep dive fashion on Wednesday, actually, this last week on the podcast. But Ozuna's been the guy all year long. That's been the steady hand for the Braves, been awesome all year long. And for about a month now, he's been pretty ordinary, to be kind. Like, he's kind of in a slump. And look, he's earned the right to have a slump. He's been incredible all year long, but he's been pretty mediocre for a while. In contrast, Matt Olson had been mediocre before that, and now Matt Olson is like Matt Olson in capital letters again for the last 4, 5, 6 weeks. So I guess it's just a rule that only one of the sluggers can be hot at the same time right now, but it's kind of been Matt Olson, and that continued on Saturday, and honestly into Sunday too.
Yeah, I mean, it is bizarre that I think our colleague Steven Tolbert had that now Marcel has gone like 102 plate appearances without a home run. And that's very bizarre for a guy who had like a legitimate chance at the National League Triple Crown maybe a month ago. And it's unfortunate that now Marcel has come on hard times. Really, I mean, the Braves would not even be close to the postseason picture without what Marcel has done for this team for the better part of the season. But the fact that he has come on hard times in basically a maybe not a must-win game every night, but a game that you very much need to win every single night is frustrating. And hopefully Marcel figures it out sooner rather than later, because if you have Matt Olson hitting well and you have Ozuna hitting, there's been some signs of encouragement from Jorge Soler. You just kind of have to hope that big three gets rocking. And it's a big if, but if you can get Austin Riley back at some point these final 2 weeks, then you feel like you have a pretty good core in the middle of your lineup. But the Braves absolutely need more out of Marcel, and hopefully he breaks out of it this upcoming week.
Yes, and just to throw the stats out there, he has not homered since I believe it is August 20th, so about a calendar month, and he does not have an RBI since August 27th. And RBIs could be overvalued in some respects, but that just kind of tells you he's not been the same guy.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been a while.
That feels impossible to me. Wow.
It does. Yeah. So the home run thing was, I actually knew the home run drought. I did not know the RBI drought. So just now looking at it, I think Steven had this too. But yeah, August 27th was his last RBI, which is, not great. Anyway, so just saying that out loud. But anyway, generally speaking, Saturday's game was a positive. We should at least say the name of Chris Sale out loud. We do this every 5 days, it seems like, because he's been incredible for a long time now. But another just incredibly positive quality start for Chris Sale. And the stat of the weekend, maybe even with the frustration today, is that Chris Sale has now gone 17 consecutive starts without allowing more than 2 earned runs. He has not allowed more than 2 runs in a game since June 1st. It is September 15th. And the last time that a Brave did that in a season was this guy named Greg Maddux. Is that good?
Yeah, it's pretty good. And I mean, for all of the numbers that Sale has put up, when you watch him every 5th night, it feels like he has been somehow even better than like the historic names and stats that he's hitting. Again, just fantastic on Saturday night. Sale is now a virtual lock to win Cy Young in the National League. I believe the sports books all have him somewhere in the minus 4,000 to minus 5,000 odds of winning the award, which is a basic guarantee. He is also a guarantee for Comeback Player of the Year. And I was tweeting about this earlier, but Chris Sale, behind Shohei Ohtani and probably Francisco Lindor, I think Sale is going to get a ton of MVP votes in the National League. And I mean, for my money, I think you can easily make a case that Chris Sale is top 3 in MVP this year, maybe top 5. But behind Ohtani and Lindor, I'm not sure there is a player on a National League team this season who has meant more to his team's success and has the stats to back it up.
I think we're on the same page there, and rarely would I have a pitcher that high, but I think he's been so clearly the best pitcher in the league. And aside from the 2 guys you mentioned, because it is a 2-man race, and really Ohtani is probably going to win, but Lindor should be right there next to him. But after that, I think definitely you could argue for Sale at number 3 on the MVP list, and that's a secondary concern, of course. And I'm with you; he's going to win Cy Young unless something crazy happens in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, awesome year. We've talked about it a lot, but it's worth emphasizing. I know it feels like we might be repeating ourselves a little bit on Chris Sale's brilliance, but it is worth talking about because he's been that good. One thing that you came up with, I'll actually throw it to you to explain it. There actually is a path for Chris Sale to throw 3 more times on regular rest down the stretch. And because of the off days and things, I don't know if they're going to do that, and I don't think you do either. But that's a pretty intriguing thing with the Braves now having only a handful of games left in the season. As I mentioned before, only 1 more road trip this year. You could see the best pitcher in baseball throw 3 more times.
Yeah, so with 2 weeks and 13 games to go for the Atlanta Braves, there is a world where Chris Sale could make 3 starts And really, it would mean that Sale would be starting 3 of the Braves' final 10 regular season games. If the Braves do not adjust anything with the rotation, and frankly, I don't think they really can, it will be interesting to see what they do without Ronaldo Lopez this upcoming week. But in terms of Sale, he would be on regular rest on Thursday in the series finale against the Cincinnati Reds. And then with the off day the following Monday, Sale could start game 1 of the home series against the New York Mets, which, Captain Obvious, is a massive series. And then if the Braves needed it, Chris Sale could start the season finale at home against the Kansas City Royals. Now, let's hope that it doesn't come to that, especially that last day of the season, game 162. In a perfect world, the Braves would not have to pitch Sale, and they would rest him and line him up for game 1 of the postseason. But if you need him, you need him. So just a housekeeping note that the Braves, if they stay on schedule and there's nothing weird like a rain out, which would be quite bad at this point in the calendar, Chris Sale could start 3 of the team's final 10 games. And hey, man, I mean, baseball, it's a funny game. I think 2 of Sale's losses this season were to the Miami Marlins and the Oakland Athletics. But this team with Sale on the mound, I will take their chances against basically anyone.
Yes, and again, TBD on whether they actually do that. And just for the record, as we look ahead a little bit, the Rays do have to come up with a plan of some kind on Tuesday. That is the spot vacated by Lopez, and no one else is going to be ready as far as the Big Four is concerned. So that's going to be a spot start of some kind, and then we'll figure it out from there. One more stat on Chris Sale before we move on to the dreary Sunday breakdown. The Braves are now 21-7 this year with Chris Sale on the mound, and they are 1 game under 500 when he does not pitch. So that's the difference. And it might not seem crazy, but like they are middling without Chris Sale, and they're dominant with him, and that's pretty simple.
That's crazy. I mean, again, most valuable player, that's about as valuable as it gets for a playoff contender.
Okay, Scott, let's do the not so fun thing I was talking about Sunday's game. So people probably know the story if they are listening to this podcast, but in case you don't, the Braves led 2-0 beginning in the 3rd inning. They actually scored a run and both runs in kind of bizarre fashion for the Braves. They had 3 walks, a catcher's interference, and a single to go up 2-0. And at that point, you feel pretty good because Walker Buehler, while he is a big name and a pedigree pitcher, has been pretty bad this year, actually, sneakily, for the Dodgers. So you're up 2-0 with Chuck Morton, who we'll come back to in a second, pitching pretty well, and a guy in Buehler who's not been pitching very well. But unfortunately, that was the end of the scoring. And while a lot of the end of the game is going to be worth talking about, I want to stop right here and just say it seems obvious, but the Braves just have to score more runs. I mean, a lot of this could have been avoided if the Braves didn't just only get 2 against Walker Buehler and not even the top of the Dodgers bullpen, because it's a margin of error thing we've been talking about for weeks now, but that is where things start. You probably should have scored more than 2 runs.
Yeah, I mean, offense masks everything else, right? If your pitching staff doesn't have a great night, but the lineup puts up 8 runs, you're not talking about it. You're talking about the lineup being great. And you're right. The Braves had an opportunity, especially in the 3rd inning. They did scratch across 2 runs. I thought the approach was really strong in the 3rd. A lot of patience. The Braves really made Walker Buehler work. I mean, the guy his jersey was like drenched in sweat. And unfortunately, I mean, I thought Jared Kelenic hit a grand slam. He just missed one. I think it was to the warning track in right field. Obviously, that would have completely changed the game, but the Braves had a couple of opportunities on Sunday night, and other than the 2 runs they scratched across in the 3rd, they couldn't pile on there and really put the game out of reach early like they had done on Friday and Saturday. And then, oh my God, later on, man, that 8th inning, if the Braves end up missing the playoffs by a game or whatever the situation is, I know I will look back on tonight's 8th inning and then the subsequent 9th inning and just kind of bang my head against the wall, because that was, I mean, it was just painful to watch.
Yeah, so let's just go to that now while we're here. I mean, the Braves did give up one run in the middle of the game when there was some controversy about whether Morton should have been taken out. I tried to flag it in the moment. Morton was wobbly while he pitched quite well in this game and has been pitching quite well for several weeks now. He gave one back he got to Ohtani, which is fitting because of what's about to happen. Then Dylan Lee pitches in the seventh, and this is a Dylan Lee appreciation zone, but he wasn't his best and gets two pitch clock violations in the same inning, including the second one leading directly to a walk that would have ended the inning. And suddenly it's a tie game because Ohtani is an alien. So let's just stop there. Anything that you wanted to point out about that whole sequence from the fifth to the seventh? Because obviously it wasn't as high profile as the eighth or ninth, but the Braves kind of had some interesting moments there to I guess, quote unquote, blow their 2-0 lead.
Yeah, I mean, what was Dylan Lee doing?
I don't really know. No, I mean, the one that was the egregious one was the walk, of course, and it felt to me like he was set for like 5 seconds and just didn't throw the baseball. I don't know what's going on. They showed it
in between the 4 hours of Shohei Ohtani commentary. They showed Dylan Lee was set, and there was 5 seconds on the pitch clock, and he literally stood there. I'm like, dude, wait. And Lee had already gotten the one pitch clock violation. So
that's what's so crazy to me. That's the thing. Like if that had been his first one in the inning, it would have been weird. But I feel like if you get one, your antenna's up. Right? Like if you default and you get a ball, and great, it didn't cost him in that plate appearance earlier, but I feel like getting one is like, okay, we just messed up our timing. Let's reset a little bit. Oh, yeah. What you can't do is have. By the way, it's 3-2. It's a 3-2 count. You cannot get a pitch clock violation there. It's brutal. Right. By the way, again, we love Dylan Lee. Dylan Lee is really good. It was weird, so weird.
Yes. So the fact that Dylan got 2 quick outs in the 7th inning, then pitch clock violationed his way to a walk, then gave up a single to a pinch hitter. And then to his credit, he got ahead 0-2 on Shohei. But, I mean, it wasn't a terrible pitch, but to leave an 0-2 slider in the zone, you got to bury at least one of those. And it wasn't even like there was a runner on third base. I mean, worst case, you bounce one and Travis can't block it and the runners advance. I mean, that's not ideal, but it's hardly the end of the world. It was an 0-2 slider in the zone to a very good hitter, and the Braves paid for it. And overall, Dylan has been fantastic this year, but just, man, 2 pitch clock violations for a guy who should know better. And, I mean, even Travis d'Arnaud. I mean, I think d'Arnaud needs to be like more alert out there, because you will see catchers call time with like a second on the pitch clock to save their pitcher sometimes. I don't know, man. Just an infuriating 7th inning to let the game get tied. And little did we know that was just the appetizer to the 8th and the 9th.
Yeah, that's right. And I am obligated to point out that Charlie Morton deserved better. That's all I'll say. Charlie Morton deserved better. He pitched very well in this game. Okay, to the 8th.
Yeah, Charlie, I want to...
Go ahead.
I know you would happily do a victory lap, and I want to let you have your flowers. But yes, Charlie Morton, very good. Last 7 starts, a 2.68 ERA. And, I mean, Charlie did his job, and he should have gotten a win on Sunday night.
Yes, and we'll leave it there. No reason to focus on that, but Charlie's been pitching really well. We talked about it a number of times. Okay, here's when we knew things were going to be going sideways. I think everybody felt the same thing in this moment. In the 8th inning, the game is now tied. The Braves have a great opportunity. Marcell Ozuna draws a walk to lead off the inning. He is, of course, because Bryce Sicker cannot help himself, pinch run for by Eli White. Then Matt Olson doubles. And by the way, the double was almost a home run. It would have been a home run according to StatCast in 14 ballparks. So even that was like a couple of feet away from a 2-run lead for the Braves. Instead, it's off the wall, and it's 2nd and 3rd with no out. Great situation. I think we all have the same fear of what this team has done this year. I will just ask you one thing. All due respect to Eli White. If you're going to have a pinch runner that you burn either your best or second best hitter for in the 8th inning, and he can't score from first on a double off the wall, that's not great, in my opinion. And I think in general, you do default to not sending a guy with no outs. I'll be the first to say that. So maybe that's all it is. I just, in a vacuum, if you tell me, hey, this is a pinch runner and Olsen doubles off the wall and he doesn't score, and we've just burned Ozuna, and it's like, all right, probably should score there, I think, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, what does it say about this season when, like, momentarily after that double happened from Olsen and White does not score? Like, I think I messaged our group chat, like, second and third, no outs. What could go wrong?
That's exactly what you said, and we all thought the same thing. And granted, some of that's just doomerism, and I understand that.
Sure.
But it's also a hint of truth, because this has been a theme this year for this team, the lack of situational hitting, all those things. And also, you couldn't have possibly drawn it up in more frustrating fashion, because Travis, who we love, swung it, I mean, according to the pitch data, swung at ball 4 3 times with nobody out, second and third. The pitch that he ended up generating the out on in a full count, Scott, I mean, it almost hit him. It was nowhere close to the plate. Like, it was comical. It was not even near the zone. He makes contact, but soft contact, and you don't send the runner from third on like a 200-foot fly out, which is understandable. And then Orlando Arcia, I'm not exaggerating when I say this, did not see a strike in 6 pitches and struck out. And I guess my only defense here, Scott, would be that the pitching was sitting like 100, 101. So there's a little bit of allowance for, hey, this guy's throwing 100, so it's a little bit harder for you. At the same time, these are 2 veteran guys, and you just cannot swing at ball 4 7 combined times, 8 combined times. Like, it was crazy.
Well, and it's just more of the same, where I swear to God, this team gets a runner in scoring position and Kevin Seitzer starts screaming to swing, swing, swing. Right? I mean, this was hardly the first time this season where the Braves have a big opportunity to score, and seemingly all they do is step into the box and they prepare their swing no matter what pitch is coming. I think in total, 14 pitches were thrown to d'Arnaud and Arcia, and 2 of them were in the strike zone, including the very first pitch thrown to d'Arnaud. So that means after strike 1 to Travis d'Arnaud, with runners on second and third and nobody out, the next 13 pitches, only 1 of them was in the strike zone, and the Braves managed to swing at ball 4 about 9 times, a shallow pop fly to left field, which was basically a strikeout. And then Orlando Arcia, man, I mean, I know he had the big hit on Saturday night, but
He did.
dear God, I mean, that was that was an amateur approach I mean, that's what I would do. If I had to, here you go, Scott, go swing the bat. I would literally swing at everything thrown my way with no real chance. I mean, even if Orlando makes contact with one of those baseballs, he's not going to do anything with it. They almost hit him in the head. Come on.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. And I know I said it once before. I'll say it one more time just so we don't get yelled at by anybody. The guy's throwing 101 miles an hour. I understand. It is difficult. But I thought those were 2 really pretty poor plate appearances from veteran guys. And they're not, I mean, Travis is having a good year, but they're not your mashers, but you should be able to get a run in from third base. And Eli White is a fast runner. He's not, prime Billy Hamilton, but he can run. And anything, anywhere, more than 250 feet in the outfield or a ground ball, something like he's scoring. And you just didn't make it happen. And Kelenic strikes out to end it. And quite frankly, we all knew it was going to happen after that. Now, I will also give the caveat that I did not expect what actually happened to happen in the 9th. But if you had, in fact, I had the text messages to prove it between you and I, we knew the Braves were going to lose this game at the end of the 8th inning.
Oh, with a podcast coming right after, never, ever, ever in doubt that after that cursed 8th inning, something bad was going to happen in the 9th.
Yeah, it was worse than expected, but that's worthy of noting. Look, we've been chronicling this actually for a long time about how dominant and ridiculous Raisel Iglesias has been. And then he actually dodged a bullet. He got pretty lucky on what was a near home run with 1 out for the Dodgers in the 9th. But then he gets 2 outs. The game is still 2-2. They intentionally walk Ohtani to get to Betts. Did you mind that? Because I did not, personally.
No, I did not. I mean, hey, when your organization has $1 billion to spend on two players, you're going to prompt the other team to have a very difficult decision to make. And in the moment, I had no issue walking Ohtani to face Mookie.
We agree, especially because Ohtani had been the only guy who's beaten them all night long. He's also left-handed, whereas Betts is not. But of course, Betts is excellent, future Hall of Famer, etc. He beats Iglesias, which happens. It wasn't like an absolute rocket, but it was up the middle, well placed, etc. The Braves are now down 3-2. Then Freddie comes up, signals in another run. Jared Kelenic overruns the ball, and it's Benny Hill music playing. It's 5-2, and then Iglesias gives up a 2-run homer to really, really end the game. It was over already, but it was really over at that point in time. And a couple of stats on Raisel, who has been incredible this year. He's been the best reliever in the National League. I'm saying that out loud before I say this. It was his first earned run allowed in 3 months. June 16th was his last earned run allowed. And this is the one that I pulled myself. I couldn't believe it, but it's true. His season-long ERA, it is September 15th. There's a lot of data here. His season-long ERA went from 1.16, which is absurd, of course, to 1.87 in 3 batters. It jumped 3/4 of a run in about 4 minutes in September. I don't know what to say. I mean, it was like cats and dogs, like rains it pours, whichever one you want to throw out there. Raisel just kind of, I guess he probably lost composure. And then John Brebbia, by the way, comes in and gets, because the home runs in the first 2 batters he faces. Pretty funny. I don't know. It was already over, so it didn't actually matter. But man, it was an avalanche.
Yeah, I mean, just after the 8th inning going the way it did, the fact that Raisel, I mean, it was just a rare off night for him. I mean, you said it, June 16th. And really, it wasn't even just that. I mean, Will Smith somehow did not homer. The ball landed perfectly off of this top of the center field wall.
I think our guy Grant McCauley pointed out, he was like, I don't think I've ever seen the ball do that in that area of the park. And I trust Grant. Grant's been in a lot of games for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it defied physics that the baseball didn't bounce. After traveling 400 feet, you would think when it bounces, it would bounce in the direction it had been traveling for 400 feet. It didn't. And then Raisel was able to get a first pitch ground out comebacker that then it was 2 outs. And it was all right, Raisel's going to do it again.
He scored 7 runs with 2 outs.
And tell me this is not a microcosm of the season. In the bottom of the 8th, in a tie baseball game, the Braves, 2nd and 3rd, nobody out, no runs scored. And in the 9th, the Dodgers had 1st and 2nd with 2 outs, and they scored 7 runs.
Back-to-back-to-back homers was a nice cherry on top of the night to make things kind of just more laughable at the end. Sarah Langs had this stat, the great Sarah Langs, who the Dodgers had not scored. Obviously, it's a bit of a cherry pick stat, but they hadn't scored 7 runs with 2 outs in a 9th inning since 1996. So,
yeah,
that's 28 years ago. And look, it was brutal. I don't think that this matters to me about Iglesias. He was due for some regression. No one can really pitch at a level where, again, his ERA was 1.16. As good as he has been a little bit fortunate, I think, this year to have an ERA that low. Maybe this is just all the regression at once. I don't care about that. The game was really lost in the bottom of the 8th. I'll stand by that. I don't know. It is what it is. You could take both approaches here, and we have on the show already. It's 1 loss. The Braves are winning the series so far. It's 2-1. They're still in 5 position. They're tied with the Mets. Everything is not drastically barren right now compared to a few days or weeks ago when the Braves were out of the playoffs just even a couple days ago. Now they're tied, all that stuff. Or you can say, as I think you alluded to a few minutes ago, if the Braves miss the playoffs by a game, we are going to remember this game. We just are. Whether we should or not they all count the same in the end, but we will have this one circled mentally. I promise you we will.
Yeah. Oh, there's a half dozen games that I have circled mentally if the season...
The Colorado Sunday game as well, high on the list.
Yeah, the Colorado Sunday game. Yeah, the 2 losses to the White Sox, the disaster class from Brian Snitker in that game in Philadelphia, which they blew.
God.
I mean, we don't need to. Maybe we will have to do a podcast at some point of a postmortem.
Oh,
and let's hope
you know what?
not.
I'm gonna write that down on my list of podcast ideas, and hopefully we'll never use it because I don't want to do that show. If they miss the playoffs, we will probably have to do that show in October at some point.
Yeah, let's hope it would be like an all-time hate listen where
Correct.
everybody could throw on like some super heavy-duty metal music in the back and just and listen to that show. But let's hope it doesn't get to that point. And what you just said a moment ago is absolutely right. As things stand, the Braves are still tied for the final wild card spot. And if they can win on Monday and bounce back, kind of all will be forgotten, I think, or at least it will be much, much, much less painful than what it is right now. Because again, we don't want to sugarcoat it. This was a terrible Sunday night loss, especially knowing that the Mets had already lost.
Yeah, that was a tough scene for sure. And we can leave it there for now, just for the sake of everyone's sanity here on a Sunday evening. We should actually, you made this note. This is our one kind of news and notes item. We have collectively not really seen or heard much at all about Austin Riley. Granted, he's at the 4-week mark of the 6 to 8 week timeline. But Ozzie Albies has been in the news a lot the last few days about dry swings and the fact that he's maybe going to come back and bat right-handed as soon as, I'm not saying it's going to be tomorrow, but that might be happening very soon. But that's been like the talking point, which I get. He's a little bit ahead of Austin, but I would like to hopefully see Austin do something in the next couple of days that we hear about, maybe a workout. It's like, hey, maybe Austin can be ready to go in 10 days or whatever.
Yeah. I think Buster Olney had an in-game report on Sunday night that Riley is going to get his cast off in the next week if all goes to plan following an examination. And that's obviously the first step. And then it's what is his strength like? Can he pick up a bat? Can he swing a bat? Can he throw a baseball? Can he field a baseball? All of these things, at this point, man, we are running out of daylight to get Austin back. But it does sound like if he gets a good, we'll call it medical clearance later this week, it at least gives him a chance because Austin, as good as he is, will need at least a few days of pretty intense swinging the bat in simulations and batting practices, whatever they're going to do. I don't know if Austin could go from 0 to 100 and if the Braves make the playoffs where he could start game one after not playing for 6 weeks in the majors. I don't know. It might come to that. It will be very interesting. Yeah.
One stat, and I don't mean to pick on him. I just pulled this as you were talking. I think we both appreciate the contributions of Gio Urshela off the scrap heap. He's played good defense. He's done his job. At the same time, Gio Urshela has a 59 WRC plus with the Braves. So anything from Austin would be nice.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like it's been a little bit better.
I know. I was surprised it was that low. I looked it up to make sure, and that includes tonight. That's one of those live stats things, but that is not good, obviously.
And an interesting puzzle piece here for the Braves is if they feel Ozzie Albies can come back and play, right-handed only at this point, but we're going to get our scientific experiment wish here.
I was going to say we've been calling for that for years for Ozzie, who has always been so much better at the right side than the left side. Are you going to go ahead and take it to Whit Merrifield playing third base? Is that where we're going?
I mean, I'm kind of wondering out loud. Now, I will say, Brad,
he had the fractured foot, by the way.
God, what a season!
What a season!
But with Whit Merrifield, offense aside, the difference between Whit defensively and Ozzie defensively is like kind of shocking.
It is quite big. Yeah, even as an Ozzie truther, I've always been an Ozzie guy, but yeah, his defense has slipped quite a bit. He's not very good defensively. And Whit's been good, like clearly a positive. Yeah. And, the fractured foot, I poke fun of it. I don't think that he is, I think he's limited because, I mean, I admire him for playing. It's admirable that he's playing. And I know he had 2 hits when he came back. He still has a fractured foot. And it's not going to heal in the next 2 weeks. So can he play third base? Sure. I do think that, if you told me Ozzie can play, and they're comfortable with him playing. I think you have to try Ozzie and Witt at third, because I think Witt has just hit so much better than Urshela. But maybe they don't think Witt can play third anymore. I don't know. We'll see. But it's an option.
Yeah, it's man, it is pretty bleak that we are having these conversations, and God, who knows what's going to happen over these last 2 weeks. But
That's
yes,
right.
nonetheless, we wanted to at least talk about Austin Riley a little bit because, I mean, really, I don't know if we have said Austin's name much over the last month because there's really been no boots on the ground reporting in terms of his recovery, although we did get a little kernel of something from Buster Olney tonight.
We did. And shouts to Buster, a former guest of this podcast, hopefully another future guest as well. All right, let's look ahead briefly before we get out of here because we were going to go shorter than usual. And we didn't because that's just what we do, Scott. Monday's finale is a big one, not only because of just the sheer impact of the game. A couple of really, really high-profile pitchers on the mound on Monday in prime time in Atlanta. It's Max Fried against Yamamoto. And Yamamoto was hurt for a while, but is really good. Obviously, a billion-dollar, not really billion-dollar, but $100+ million arm this winter for the Dodgers. And while Max has not been bad, I think it's fair to say he has not been himself since the injury scare, at least by the numbers. So it would be really nice to have a dominant Max performance. We haven't seen one of those in a while.
Well, and the Braves are probably going to need Max to be at his usual very good self. Yamamoto was very good, although in an abbreviated start coming off the IL. So you're going to figure that he's going to be quite good once again. Just have to hope that Max is back to what he can do pre-injury. And man, Monday's game feels really important, doesn't it, Brad?
It really does. And I believe you brought up sportsbooks earlier. I just consulted the odds for Monday, late night Sunday. In a shocking turn of events, it's essentially a total coin flip in the market, which makes sense. I think that if you were polling experts or sharp people about baseball, the Dodgers are better than the Braves right now because of just injuries, all those things. And Yamamoto versus Fried, maybe it's a coin flip, whatever you want to say. And the game's in Atlanta. So that kind of balances a little bit. But yeah, it seems like a coin flip game. Anybody could win. Would I be more excited if it was Max Fried against some guy who I didn't think was very good? I guess. But the Braves have also floundered against some pretty bad pitchers in recent weeks. So maybe Yamamoto's what they need to see. Maybe they're geared up for some high-end pitching on Monday.
Yeah. I was going to say he is no Austin Gomber, who just mowed the team down a couple of weeks ago.
I mean, Walker Buehler tonight was, again, I know he's got more pedigree, but he's been bad this year. He looked good for most of the night tonight. So, yeah, big one there. Obviously, we're not going to focus on that too much. People might be listening to this on Monday night, or even Tuesday. But that's coming up as we're recording this podcast. And then we won't have to preview it now. But the final trip of the season, 6 games, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in Cincinnati, and then they go to Miami after that. Not a devastating schedule situation, other than like as far as who they're playing against. But you noted this, a tough travel spot, and also road games are road games. Nothing's easy.
Yeah, I mean, look, I get that it's hard to schedule 162 games for 30 teams. But man, I mean, the Braves will play Monday night at home and then get on an airplane and fly to Cincinnati for then 3 games without the benefit of an off day in the 3rd week of September. I don't know. I mean, how did that one happen? That kind of sucks. The Reds are not terrible. They actually have a positive run differential on the season, but they are below 500. And the Reds are actually 3-0 against Atlanta this season. They just completed a sweep kind of sneakily with that makeup game last week in Atlanta. And then the Braves go to Miami for 3 games, which should, keyword should, be an easy series where the Braves win at least 2 of those 3 games, if not try to be greedy with the sweep. But Miami has played the Braves tough, and you can bet that they will be looking to be the spoilers, even if their season is done with.
Yeah, it's been done for quite a while, but it's a division game. These division games tend to be a little bit thorny on occasion, even against bad teams, especially we're talking about on the road. I'm trying to find the numbers actually for the Braves are 7-3 against the Marlins this year. So they've done their job against Miami. That's good to see. But they've been competitive games, to your point. Only like a +8, I think, run differential in those games. So nothing crazy. Yeah, circle those. We'll preview them and talk about them later on this week. And as always, we'll have a jam-packed slate, not only with us, but also with Steven and with Sean. We've reached the end, Scott. We didn't quite get to midnight on this podcast. We could have probably aimed for that if we, under different circumstances. Anything that you want to get to that we have not touched on already?
I hope the Braves win.
That's well said.
And I hope
by you.
And I hope the New York Mets and the Arizona Diamondbacks and the San Diego Padres lose. How about that for some hard-hitting analysis to get us out of here?
Yeah, we won't have to go off on this, but it is and was and will always be strange to root for the Phillies, and that had to happen this weekend. I have no problem turning that mechanism on in my brain, but it was a little bit strange to be like, "Hey, go Phillies this weekend." It's just not natural. You don't love that.
If it helps the Atlanta Braves, I root for it. Is kind of my MO. Sometimes it's gross to be like rooting, like, come on, JT Realmuto, get this hit, or come on, Bryce Harper, hit this home run. But hey, if it helps the Braves get into the playoffs, and actually worth noting, the Braves, or rather the Mets and the Phillies, play 4 more games next weekend in New York.
Go Phillies!
Go Phillies. Hopefully the Phillies do not clinch. Like if they want to clinch on like Sunday next weekend, that's fine. I mean, the East is effectively over, but
yes.
Mathematically, I think the Phillies are still going to be playing hard and with their regulars. And not only that, but they're also playing for home field and the first round bye and all of that. So let's hope the Phillies continue to beat up on the Mets, because that would be a huge favor for this team.
One more emphasis on how big these next few games are for the Braves. The Mets now play the Nationals at home. And while the Nationals are not awful, that's advantage Mets. And the Diamondbacks, who are the closest team above them, they're going to Colorado. Now, Colorado is a difficult place to play, but they're not a good baseball team. So the Braves need to win some games this week. I would not rely on losses from the Mets and the Diamondbacks. I would just say that.
Yep. And, it's both fun and also like terrifying to be scoreboard watching as religiously as you have to do this time of year.
Got to do it.
I know all weekend long I was keeping my eye. There was, Diamondbacks, Mets, Padres. It really is a fun time of year, but also a very stressful time of year. And let us hope the Braves find a way to bounce back on Monday and then keep it rolling against 2 teams who they should beat. They should have a good week ahead against Cincinnati and Miami. Although with this team, you just truly never know.
You truly never know. Scott, where can listeners who might be new or maybe new to social media find all of your musings when they're not on this podcast?
I am at Scott Coleman 55. A big thank you to everybody for checking us out. And we will have plenty of coverage these last 2 weeks here on the podcast, and hopefully deep into October with a long-time playoff run.
That is the plan. We always are here. We don't take days off, even after bad losses, as people hopefully can respect as we record this podcast on Sunday night after a brutal one into Monday. But yes, please tell your friends. Please subscribe. It's been huge already to see the support. We definitely appreciate it. But go ahead and subscribe, auto-subscribe, download on multiple platforms if you want to help the podcast out. Apple, Spotify, Overcast, Amazon, and YouTube is a growing potential for us. Might have some video stuff on there eventually in the coming days. So subscribe on that platform. Follow us on Twitter/X at Hammer Territory. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. We are always at Hammer Territory on those platforms. And your support means the world to us. For Scott, I will sign it off now. Thanks most everybody, and we'll see you all next time.